This disease is deadly. It is life or death, and there is hope, and we can help these people. We need to get rid of the shame and the stigma, and we need to step up and help the people that deserve help. Everybody deserves help, and there is a way out. I am admired, and people look up to me now, and that is so huge from where I was a year ago, walking with my head down around town. Like, I'm not afraid to say that I'm an addict, because you know what, look at where I was and look at how far I've come, and I'm an active member of society, and I'm an active member of the community, and people have respect, and that is something I never thought I would get as having a disease of addiction. I never thought I could go from drug dealer, who I thought nobody knew, of course everybody knew, and turn it into something positive. And that was a huge motivator for me. Like, I wanted to show my kids that although there was so much damage that was done, there's so much positive that we can do. Like, we have to take our weakness and turn it into a strength. And that was the hardest part of my life, but it's the most valuable lesson ever. And if I can take that and help, I used to say this 6 months ago, if I can help one person, whether it's in domestic violence or in alcoholism or addiction, if I can help one woman, and here I am, I helped 8 last week. So that's just, it's so powerful and rewarding. It's what I want to do, is help people. I'm proud of myself. I had a hard time at first. At first, everybody said you need to work on yourself first. And when I first got sober, I wanted my kids back, and I wanted a house, and I wanted this, and I wanted a job, and I wanted a career, and I wanted to go to school, and I was being an overachiever, and everybody said you have to be selfish and you have to work on yourself. And it took me a little bit to grasp that, but I have built up some self-confidence and some self-worth, and I am very proud of myself now. I mean, look at where I was just a year ago. I'm a better mother, I'm a great friend, I'm a great listener. I can offer people things that I never ever had, you know, and it's such a benefit to be able to lead by example, and not just to say, like, you can do this, you can get through addiction, you can learn to live with your disease. To show them, like, when women walk in here and they sit next to me and they're crying and they're a mess, and I can say, I was just where you were 8 months ago or a year ago, it just melts. You can see them physically melt, because there's hope, and it's sitting right in front of them, and that's amazing to me. I did get a lot of feedback from people who were nervous about me taking on so much at such an early stage of sobriety, but for me, this is when it's fresh. Like, these people walk in and they're detoxing off of crystal meth or crack cocaine or heroin, or it's a good reminder for me where I don't want to be. But it's not unachievable for them to see where I am. It's hard for somebody with 30 years to say, oh, you need to stay sober and this is what I did. Yeah, you're 800 years old. Like, I'm young, and I've been where they are, and it wasn't that long ago. And it's hard to see outside of right now. Forget about 30 years from now. It's cool to see somebody who's just been through it, and it's still fresh, and they still have the feelings. I mean, I think it's easy to forget the struggle and how real and how hard it is. But when you live it every day and it's right in front of your face, I mean, I'm not just keeping people sober, they're keeping me sober as well. I was a very late bloomer. My addiction did not become active until I was in my 30s. I went through sexual abuse as a child, and married my very first boyfriend at the age of 19. Was addicted to becoming the best wife I could be and mother I could be. Was married for 10 years and left that situation and immediately got into another relationship who led me into opiate usage, introduced me to Percocets and cocaine, and that was a slow progressing addiction. I started out using just for fun, and that was wonderful. Then it became a necessity. I got pregnant with my third child, who was my son, Was able to quit everything altogether for 9 months. The relationship was very rocky and we didn't end up staying together. After my son was born, I returned to prescription drugs. It was easier to get. I was now a single mother of 3 kids and started to live the lifestyle of a dealer. Was bringing quite a few Percocets into town every day. With my children in the car, the consequences weren't even thought of. The only thing that mattered was getting high, getting my fix, and making some money to support these kids. The lifestyle got old pretty quick and was able to kick the habit in one day. I then met another man who was a raging alcoholic, and he was a functioning alcoholic though, and I was just looking for a good time, so was drinking for fun, and then it became a daily activity, and then it became a necessity. My body had to have it, and I was drinking up to a half a gallon of vodka every day, all day long, non-functioning of course. I lost my children after the first domestic violence attack. He hit me in front of my children, which led them to go to their dads. At that point, it was game on. Now I was able to drink the way I had. I felt like I had been a single mom for so long, this was my time to do whatever I wanted. Of course, I know now that's the addictive thinking, but so now I have no kids and the free time to do whatever I wanted, so I was drinking quite heavily, not getting out of bed very often except to walk to the liquor store every day. I then became very ill. My family member came and had a mini intervention with me, and I called to check into rehab. And they sent me to the emergency room for an assessment, and I was diagnosed with severe pancreatitis. My body was shutting down. They said I was 2 days away from death if I had continued to drink the way I had been. Was admitted to New London Hospital for 11 days to have that taken care of. It took 5 days just to get my body enough fluid to make up for the fluid I had lost. Prior to going to the hospital, I hadn't eaten or drank in 7 days other than vodka, so I was in pretty rough shape. I went to the Phoenix House in Franklin from there, did a 28-day program, which I did graduate. I came home to a bottle of vodka sitting on the table, waiting for me to celebrate graduating from recovery. So the ex-boyfriend contributed to the addiction flaring back up. And of course, it didn't take long to get back to where I was before I went to rehab. So we continued to live that way for the next few months. When I first went to rehab, it wasn't for myself. It was to make everybody else happy. So that was kind of, I don't want to say it was a waste because I learned a lot there, but I wasn't ready. And each time I tried, I knew I was building a piece of the puzzle. You know what I mean? Like, rehab was the first step, and no, I didn't stay sober, but the tools I learned there were invaluable. And then I had to go through the domestic violence issue, which just it added to the foundation that I had. And if I hadn't gone through those steps, that I wouldn't be the person I am today. When I was finally ready for help, and I came to terms with it, knowing there was nothing I could do on my own was the biggest thing. Like, I thought I could fix myself. I didn't think I needed help, and I was very independent my entire life, so I could do this, or I had it under control. And when I finally reached out to help, like I said, the people that had been there and knew how I felt were the most powerful influences for me. Like, they could tell me anybody can read in a book and tell me, yes, you're an alcoholic, or yes, you have addiction, or whatever it may be. But the people that have been there, my peers, were the most substantial influence in my recovery. And they still continue to be. That's what these groups are here. They're all peer-to-peer. So it doesn't matter what you come in with for a problem, somebody at this table is feeling or has felt very recently the same exact way. And we work off of each other. Have you tried it this way? Have you tried it that way? Have you thought about it like this? And a lot of the times the answer is no. And it takes just somebody saying something in a different way or with a different perspective than what you have to spark to spark a change. I just want everybody to know that there is hope and that the recovery is possible. We need to get rid of the shame and the stigma, and we need to really reach out and help people that are suffering. This is such a strong epidemic right now, and there's help out there. And if these people don't see that there's help or don't acknowledge that there's help, this is deadly. This is life or death. I have no doubt in my mind that if I go back out and use or drink, that I will die. Like, my rock bottom last time was about the last bottom I have in me. The next time, I won't be coming back. It is life or death. And I mean, if somebody can put together one day sober, you know, that's amazing. There's no shame in any amount of sobriety. And as long as they're willing, as long as they're breathing, there's still hope. We can make a difference and we can help people. I mean, we're doing it right now. I left him for good, moved out and moved in with a friend, started detoxing at her house, was living the sober lifestyle, and he kept calling me saying that he was going to commit suicide, that he was depressed and he was sad and he didn't know what to do. And at this point, I had done everything I knew what to do, and I needed to get sober for myself. So I stopped accepting his calls, just to find out that he had slit his wrists and been admitted. He hadn't been admitted. He slit his wrists and went to New London Hospital, and they released him because he was under the influence at the time. So there was nothing they could do to take his threats seriously. 3 days later, he put a knife in his heart, trying to commit suicide. And I was there right after that happened. He was darted up to Dartmouth. He had open heart surgery in the back of the helicopter. Was there for 44 days, and I had all kinds of guilt and remorse, felt horrible. Like if I hadn't left, if I hadn't gotten better, that wouldn't have happened. So I relapsed. I picked him up from the hospital and brought him home, and he was home for 2 days, and we started sniffing his prescription medication, and of course that led to a trip to the liquor store. He was out for 2 days and hit me 26 times in the head during a blackout, which I was afraid to go to sleep that night. I wasn't sure what to do because I was afraid I wasn't going to wake up. And he ultimately was arrested and held for 20 days or so and was let out on a technicality. So, of course, now I have all this other stuff to deal with and couldn't stay sober. But that's when I reached out for help. I had put myself in another dangerous situation because of my drinking, and I knew there had to be a different way. I just didn't know what it was. I knew I didn't want to drink. It didn't do what it had used. When I used to drink for fun, it made me social, and it made me fun, and it made me able to communicate with people, and it was a different high. And it didn't do that anymore. Alcohol, it didn't do anything. It made everything worse. It intensified the thoughts, and it was obsessive. All I did was think about, how am I going to get the next drink? How am I going to get the next drink, the next bottle? Everything else went out the window. It didn't matter anymore. And that was really hard, especially after having some clean time, because you start to get your thought process back and you start to build yourself up a little bit. And then it's just like disappointment. As soon as you go and you have that drink, it's like, what have I done? Why did I do that? And I think it's valuable for me. I was really hard on myself, like, oh, I threw away 30 days or I threw away 45 days. But it wasn't the case, because I had learned so much in that time, and I knew I could get sober, and I knew I had the power to do something about it. It was just something wasn't working, and I had to figure out what that part was that was missing, that I could fix so that I could get it all at the same time and stay sober. At the end of my drinking and my addiction, I would pray every night not to wake up, because I just didn't know how to stop. I was drinking against my will. I did not want to drink anymore, but my body physically could not stop. The motivation for doing what I do now is that I walked to a place that was supposed to help me, and they took my report and they sent me on my way, and there was no help available. And that was very sad for me. I mean, I didn't have any self-worth. I was very hopeless. I felt very helpless. I didn't know where to go or what to do. I knew I had a problem. I didn't know where to go or who could help me. I knew I couldn't help myself at this point. And the people that helped me the most were the people that understood it, the people that had felt the way I had felt, the shame of being in a domestic violence situation, the shame and guilt of being an alcoholic and an addict, having the drug dealer reputation in town. Like, I didn't want to go anywhere. It was very embarrassing. And started going to counseling and started going to a 12-step here in town. I wasn't able to stay sober right away, but I was trying, and I wasn't having to drink constantly like I had been prior to this. So I was able to collect 30 days, and then I had a relapse, which was a valuable lesson for me. It taught me about the obsession and the insanity of the first drink. Everybody had told me the first drink gets you drunk, and I thought they were just a bunch of lightweights. What I didn't understand is that as soon as you put that first drink into your body, your mind takes over and you're powerless over alcohol, and it's the only thing that you can think about. That relapse was short-lived, thank God, and was able to collect a little bit more time. I had one more reoccurrence, and that was July 31st of last year. Is the last time I've had to put any drugs or alcohol into my body at all. And now I'm just trying to find a better way, a way to help these people that are struggling. I know what it's like, and I know the helplessness and the hopelessness and the lack of self-worth, and nobody wants to ask for help. But I want to offer a place for them to go where they know there's no judgment and there's no discrimination. Anybody can get help, and I've been there. I was there last year, and it's amazing what you can accomplish once you get sober. There were so many negatives that came with my using and my drinking. However, I have a relationship with my kids today. Like, even when I was super mom, I was there, but I wasn't there, if that makes any sense. I was there physically, but mentally I was 10 million other places away. I can stop and I can focus on my kids. The relationship I have with my son now is amazing, and I am sober and I can realize how beautiful it is. He has flourished and grown so much in the past year since I've been sober. His social skills, he goes to tons of meetings with me. He's like a little staple in the community, and he's so happy, and he's just a genuinely good kid. And my daughters, they're still struggling a little bit, but they are super proud. And like I said before, the one thing I wanted to do was show them that there could be positives. So now they're understanding that they're not the only children out there who are the children of addicts. They held that really personally for a long time, thinking that they were alone, and that's no different than the disease itself. These kids feel isolated and they feel shame, and it's in the beginning process with them because they're a little bit older, but they're learning learning of ideas of how to reach out and how to help other children who have been affected. So it's a positive thing for all of us, I think. I mean, my son counts my chips. So every time I get a new chip for another month of sobriety, he keeps the old one and he goes around and shows it at show and tell, and he's very proud. And the girls are too. It's just going to take them a little time to rebuild what we broke. So I am very hopeful for that, though. It's already taking a step in the right direction. The parents of people with addiction have so much guilt and shame and embarrassment that we need to work through. And I think the common denominator is to hook up the community with people in the same situation so that they know they're not alone. They're not the only parents in town who have a child in addiction. The addicts themselves are not alone. There's people here every day dealing the same things they are. And as an addict, you tend to isolate and you tend to withdraw from everybody and everything, not knowing that there's this great place to come and share your experience and share your thoughts and your fears and your goals. So working together is huge, and providing a space in a group that can help those people are what's going to be an asset in here. When I first walked up to receive help, like I said, she took my statement and she sent me on my way. When I first got clean and sober, I wasn't showering, I wasn't eating, I had lost all of my life skills. I was completely lost, and I didn't know. I was so overwhelmed with the things that I needed and things that needed to be done that I couldn't even think straight. And it was easy for me to just say, forget it. It's not worth being sober. I don't want to deal with all this. Just having somebody there to say, Taysa, do you have health insurance? When's the last time you ate? Do you need a dentist? Do you need a therapist? Do you need a doctor? And sometimes it's just things we don't think about. Just somebody to say, hey, have you showered today? It's the basics. It really is the basics at first. And then once you get a little bit of time, a couple days, okay, what can I help you with today? What can we work on today? Okay, you need an apartment, let's look at housing. Did you go grocery shopping? Just connecting me with the things that maybe I never thought of. I struggle with seeing people come in that are just trying to get sober, that feel helpless and hopeless. However, I'm very blessed to be able to say, this is what worked for me. This is what I want to help you with. Letting them know that they're not alone is probably number one. Nobody can grasp the fact that there's help out here and it's right at their fingertips. They just have to ask for it. When I see people come in with even 5 days clean, 10 days clean, we seeing the same people every day. They just come to check in. I had somebody walk in last Wednesday that I wasn't sure was gonna make it. And she came in today and she's smiling for the first time. That is why I do what I do. We've already outgrown this space. And the more support we get and the more talk we have and the more outreach that's encouraged, the bigger we're gonna get. I mean, this is gonna be a staple in our town. We need a place where people can come and not have somebody drive by and say, oh, did you see so-and-so at the recovery center? We need to be celebrating these people. We need to be saying, wow, did you see somebody walked in to get help? Beep your horn on the way by, stop in. And really, really help these people and support them. So we need to be able to be supportive. This community is so strong. The things that I've seen pull out of this town are amazing. And there's no stopping this group of people once they get going. And I just hope that this is something else that they continue to support. There's outreach, there's support. It's a very close-knit community. And I don't think that is very widely known. You know what I mean? Like, I stepped outside of this community and went to Manchester, and here everybody knows everybody's name. They know each other's story. They know you on a personal level. In Manchester, you don't know the person that just walked through the door. You don't know Joe Blow over across the street. Everybody knows and supports each other here. And that's what's amazing, is that people see me now that saw me a year ago and they give me a hug or congratulations or you're working so hard, and they know where I've been and how far I've come. And that itself is rewarding. They recognize you for something good and not something bad, something positive instead of the negative. I became a recovery coach because it was something I was interested in. I wanted to learn more about addiction. Being somebody in recovery, I didn't really understand all the aspects of it, so it was a different background that I could get, just another tool. When I got my certificate, people really started to search me out and to ask me questions and asked if I could help them, and that was a better high than any drug I had gotten. That somebody was looking for me and I had something to offer somebody else, and somebody saw hope in what I had done. That was the fuel that started this whole journey. I struggled with that. I was like, why did I have to get beat up? Why did I have to be abused? Why did I have to be this? Why did I have to be cheated on? And it's like, I've got all the aspects covered. You walk in and it's not that I've done it and I've done it better. It's I understand. And that gives me a whole different outlook on life. People, especially people who are trying to get help, need to know that there's somebody out there that cares. So many times we've brushed everybody aside and we pushed everybody away to the point that there's nobody out there that checks on us, nobody out there that cares if we're or clean or not. And not necessarily that they don't care. They're not showing that they care because we've pushed them away. Just me making a phone call and saying, hey, how are you doing? Are you okay? I didn't hear from you yesterday. They're like, oh, somebody is paying attention. Somebody does care. Maybe I'll walk down and see her for a minute. And that's another hour or 2 hours that they haven't used and they haven't thought about it, and then they've gotten more hope. It's about managing your time and not having all this free time to stress and to dwell on all these things that we've done wrong. When all your day was full of either looking for drugs or finding drugs or calling for drugs or going to get drugs, picking up drugs or using, you take that out and your day is empty. That's where you have to come up with a plan to fill up your time. What did I used to do all day? And now you start to hang out with more sober people because you're in peer groups or you're in 12-step programs or whatever it may be. You're hanging out with sober people that are doing different activities, and the type of person you are changes. So you'll no longer fit with the people that you used to hang out with. There are peer support meetings for adolescents with addiction. One place I speak at is the Sunshine Farm, and their youth that are being placed, they're being held until they're being placed. Even if I can't reach them right now or have them acknowledge that they have a problem, we've planted a seed. They're going to remember, oh, remember that girl that came and talked that was in a domestic violence, or that one that had an issue with her kids, or do you remember that time that girl came? Like, they're going to know that there's a place. They may not be ready right now, but when they are ready, they're going to know that there is help out there. I spoke at the Sunshine Farm 2 months ago, and I received a letter in the mail 2 days ago from a young lady that was in there just saying how alone she felt and she wishes she could just talk to me or be here. And I met her one time for 30 minutes, you know, and the impact that we have, they're so influential right now. That was like the best piece of mail I've ever gotten, I think. Just that somebody remembered my story and she reached out to me. 16, I think she is, 16. But of all the people she's met in her journey, that 20 minutes or whatever I spent with her, it wasn't even her, it was with a group. Something clicked. There are places to go, depending on what you need help for. Hope is All Recovery Center. Recovery from any addiction that you may have and supports any and all pathways to recovery. So this is a good start, and if you can't find help here, I can resource you or network you to somebody that can help you. A lot of my calls are mothers that need help for their children or a loved one. So same situation. If I can't help you, I more than likely know somebody that can. There is a sober clubhouse in town that does 12 steps. However, there's a lot of people with addictions that do not feel comfortable in a bigger setting. We offer the one-on-one. Even when the center is not open, I get phone calls and I meet people down here after hours if that's what feels safer to them. Once they're in the door and they've talked to somebody who has addiction issues and has the same problems they have, it's almost immediate that they're open and willing to talk to others. When you're intimidated to walk into a group because A, you have no self-worth, and B, you think that you're the only person, you have to alleviate some of that by letting them come in at their own pace. I have people come in before a meeting, and then dependent on how comfortable they feel, 99% of my people have jumped right into a meeting at that day and have flourished and have really taken away a lot. And it's not just new people in recovery, it's people that have 5 years, 10 years that come in and say, this was the piece that was missing to my recovery. Yes, I can talk about alcoholism, but there's such a stigma on opiate use, heroin, crack, coke, bath salts. I have nowhere to talk about this in safety without A, feeling like I'm being judged, B, somebody think I'm going to relapse, or C, somebody saying I have a problem. This is a community problem. It's not an individual problem. What can somebody who is not suffering from addiction or does not have a family member who is suffering from addiction do to help support the cause? I think they can, first of all, educate themselves. It's hard for us to be informed about things we don't know. A lot of the stigma is just ignorance. People don't understand the disease. By educating yourselves, you can reach out to people when they are going to ask for help, because it's only a matter of time. I mean, definitely, if you don't know already, a loved one or a friend or a family member is struggling right at this very moment. Educate yourself on the disease of addiction itself, and also the resources available. Where can they go for help when they ask? Education is huge with this disease. Another option is employment. A lot of people like myself who have great backgrounds in employment just need to be offered a second chance, so that's another option. There are some barriers. Insurance is a huge barrier right now, dependent on if the people that come in even have insurance. The resources are very limited in New Hampshire. Detox and rehabilitation centers are so packed and have such few beds that the waiting lists are ridiculous. The window for help is so limited as well. When somebody comes in and they want help, you have minutes, hours at the most. If you wait until they go out and score or fill their addiction, your window is closed completely. So for me to call resources and call these rehabs and have a 2 to 3 week window until a bed is open, it's unheard of and it's not realistic. Like now they're not given any hope, and they're in a panic because what am I going to do for 2 or 3 weeks? Well, the answer is to go out and use. Well, I'll just maintain my addiction until I can get into somewhere. Well, many times that window's all they need for an overdose, and they don't make it. We need to get more beds. We need to get more rehab centers. We need to get a place for people to go who want help. Right now it's pretty great to meet me. Wasn't long ago when it wasn't so great. Been in recovery for about 8 months, and my life has completely changed. It went from my rock bottom, which included losing my children and everything that went with my life, to learning how to rebuild, being sober. I now have half custody of my son, getting more time with my girls. I am a recovery coach helping other people that struggle with addiction, so that is amazing to be able to give back and to have the empathy to reach out to people and really understand where they're coming from and how they're feeling. When we are active in our addiction, we are unrecognizable. We are not even a percentage of who we normally are, and that's why it's hard for people to grasp. My son stole from me, or my son beat this guy up, or my daughter did this. We do all these horrible things, but that's our addiction has taken over. Any thought we had that was our own is now gone, and we are just feeding the demon that's in our head. Addiction is a disease. You are born with addiction. It's what leads to your addiction becoming active. And that could be circumstance, it could be surroundings, it could be a traumatic event, it could be nothing. It just all depends on the person. That window of opportunity to help somebody who's reaching out is so small. I don't know that people are aware of how bad it is in this community, how there isn't a neighborhood that's untouched in town. There's not a place that these kids or adults are finding things, that it's right next door, it's right downstairs, it's right in the same block that you live in, and nobody's talking about it. And there's such a negative stigma to it that we need to stop that. We need to acknowledge that this is a problem and that there is something we can do about it. And by addressing the issue and finding people help and encouraging it and supporting it, that we're gonna make a difference in this town. It's about awareness and not brushing it under the rug, and people don't want to acknowledge it or to see that it's right here in our community. It is right here on every street corner. And just because we don't talk about it or nobody, it's a big secret, and it's deadly. It is deadly. But I had 5 people walk in one day last week, just opening the doors and having a place for them to go and knowing it was a safe place that they could talk about it and they didn't have to be ashamed.